Most killers, they want to hide in the shadows. But what if a killer's real goal wasn't just murder, but to become a household name? We're talking about a serial killer who was less a monster and more of a media strategist. A man who literally weaponized newspapers and television to build himself into an immortal legend. Okay, let's get into this.
Now, this wasn't some confession whispered in a dark interrogation room. Oh no. This was a press release. It was a declaration sent in a complex puzzle to the biggest newspapers in the country. He wasn't just announcing a crime. He was launching his brand.
So our story really kicks off in the late 1960s in the San Francisco Bay Area. And you have to understand, this wasn't just some random spree of violence. Not at all. This was a terrifying performance, and it was meticulously staged. He chose his victims, his locations, and his weapons, all to create the absolute maximum amount of terror. Okay, so what's so fascinating here is just how much he switched things up. He strikes 4 times in less than a year. But look at his methods. He's using different caliber handguns, and then boom, he switches to a knife. This wasn't some sloppy amateur. This was a strategy. It was designed to completely confound police and prevent them from finding a consistent criminal signature. That's the unique pattern investigators need to link cases together.
The absolute peak of his dark theater happened at Lake Berryessa. Picture this, he approaches a young couple, but not with a gun. He's wearing a full, custom-made executioner's hood with his cross-circle symbol stitched right on the chest. After the attack, he just calmly walks over to their car, and with a black marker, he literally signs his work on the car door, listing the dates of his attacks. The crime scene was his canvas.
As absolutely terrifying as the physical crimes were, the Zodiac's true reign of terror, well, it began with his letters. He understood something crucial. Controlling the media, controlling the story, was way more powerful than any weapon he could ever hold. He was about to launch a psychological siege on the entire city.
And with that one chilling phrase, he branded himself. He didn't just claim he did it, he offered proof. To make sure nobody doubted him, he mailed pieces of a victim's blood-soaked shirt to the San Francisco Chronicle. Can you imagine? He forced the press to become his personal stage, making them publish his bizarre manifestos under the threat of killing again.
But here's where the story takes this incredible twist. The Zodiac thought he was this untouchable genius, right? He sends this super complex 408-symbol cipher to the press. The FBI's top codebreakers, the CIA, completely stumped. But then a high school history teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty, they solve it at their kitchen table in a single weekend. They just guessed that his ego was so big he'd have to use words like I and kill, and they just worked backwards from there.
The Zodiac was completely humiliated. Some regular guy had cracked his code wide open. So, he learned from his mistake. He realized his first puzzle was just too simple. A few months later, he mails his masterpiece, the Z340 cipher. This one was designed to be exponentially harder. It was a puzzle that would literally haunt investigators for decades.
And this is what made the Z340 so brilliant. It wasn't just a simple substitution code like the first one. It was a transposition cipher. He didn't just swap letters for symbols, he wrote them down in this really complex diagonal pattern. So even if you figured out what the symbols meant, the message was still total gibberish because all the letters were completely out of order.
51 years. Just let that sink in. 51. The world's best cryptographers, the NSA, the FBI, and all the advancing computer power over decades, they all failed. The Zodiac had created a lock so complex that for over half a century, absolutely no one could find the key.
And then, out of nowhere, in 2020, it was solved. And guess what? Not by the FBI. It was solved by an international team of amateur sleuths. And the message? Pure Zodiac. Taunting, arrogant, and yep, it had his trademark misspelling of paradise. It was the stunning victory for citizen detectives, but it didn't give a name. The ghost remained a ghost.
So, the codes were one massive puzzle. But the ultimate mystery was, of course, the man himself. Who was he? Investigators got obsessed with one name, a man who seemed to fit the profile perfectly. And for a moment there, it really seemed like the case was about to break wide open.
Now this right here is maybe the most baffling part of the entire case, Arthur Lee Allen. The circumstantial evidence was just staggering. I mean, the guy wore a Zodiac brand watch, he told a friend he wanted to hunt people and call himself the Zodiac, and a survivor even identified him. But then, every single piece of physical evidence, the DNA, the fingerprints, the handwriting, it all cleared him.
He was the perfect suspect in every single way, except for the facts.
So in the mid-70s, the Zodiac just stopped writing letters. He vanished. But his silence didn't end the story. Nope. In fact, it was just the beginning. With the dawn of the internet age, this old, cold case was completely transformed into a living, breathing global investigation. And this is where the story gets its modern twist, right? Thousands of citizen detectives on forums like Reddit and ZodiacKiller.com started sharing files, digitizing every scrap of evidence, and working together. And remember that 51-year-old cipher? It was this global network of amateurs, not law enforcement, that finally cracked it. They're the ones who've kept this case alive, pushing for new DNA tests and making sure the Zodiac can never truly disappear.
And that really brings us to the ultimate irony, doesn't it? The Zodiac created a puzzle so complex that it has probably outlasted its own creator. But today, right now, researchers are training artificial intelligence on his specific writing style, his misspellings, his obsessions. They're basically creating a digital model of his mind to crack his final unsolved codes. Which leaves us with one last thought. The man who haunted a generation with just a pen and some paper might finally be unmasked by a machine that can see right through the chaos to the truth.